Alright, so this is the final thoughts on this subject of acoustics, and I hope that I addressed these issues in a way that made it real easy for you to at least grab hold of the concepts and what's going on there. Some of the concepts and some of the applications and some things involved in acoustics can be very complex and very complicated. But if you try to break them down to very simple parts, and which I hope I did in this video series, and I certainly hope you made it through all of them, even though I might have reiterated some things and I might have drug on about some things that, that was for a purpose to try to help some of those concepts sink in. And, I hope I addressed it very well so that, when you hear somebody talk about acoustics, that you have a much better grasp of what's happening there. And if you watched all the videos on this channel related to audio and all the aspects that I'm addressing in this channel, that you should have a pretty good understanding of how they interconnect and what the connections are. And hopefully that the direction and things that I've pointed out have certainly either answered a lot of questions, opened up a whole lot of doors for you to investigate, and gave some clarity into what you're supposed to be investigating and for what purpose. Anything that has anything to do with the actual acoustics of a room or the science of sound and where those things are going to lead you to have a better understanding of acoustics and sound in general, and those type of and that type of applications that are going to be happening in your productions, so that you can deal with them with a much better tuned understanding, so that you can really focus questions that you have with that are much better targeted to get useful information and knowledge to help you move forward, rather than get you stuck in a loop of something that it isn't really going to be what you need to be focusing on. One of the biggest things of this tutorial series was that you understand that it's directly related to the science of sound, and that can get really blurry. But I hope I kind of pointed that out, and then pointed some other videos that I have on this channel that can really help you get a grasp of those things, and to be able to try to put them together so that they start to interconnect in your productions and in your understandings and in your knowledge base for the work that you're doing. That the science of sound can be very complex, so I tried to keep it as simple as possible and left the door open for you to ask me any questions you want and dig around on my channel to get some more specific answers to subjects that we were addressing. But to so you would have a comprehensive understanding of it, or at least a basic understanding of it, to where that you can branch out as much as you need to for for the application that is going to be targeted with your understanding and knowledge. So you don't need to get a degree in anything specific, and get a better understanding of those things for the application that you're going to be using them for. And also, I really hope that you really paid attention to when we're talking about spatialization, delays, and reverbs, and that whole subject in general, so that you can understand that the concepts of the environment you're working in and what you have to work with, and how it's going to relate to the equipment that you have, and how you can use that equipment to really fine tune how you're using that stuff and how you look at it, so that it's much easier to use and that you use it much better and you use it well. A lot of the things we were talking about of sculpting your own impulse responses and frequency responses, I really hope that it really sunk in that those frequency responses and impulse responses of those rooms, to actually duplicate them entirely would be mathematically very difficult because of the randomizations of them. But actually to recreate very closely what they are with what we've talked about isn't that difficult, and that you can create your own rooms, and really get into that. I mean, that is a huge thing, I mean, it really is. And I mean, even something as simple as taking a clap or some kind of response, we talked about in that last video, or the last video before delays, that you being able to create your own impulse response, or a start, that you can build upon with the videos before that about sculpting impulse responses, to actually, completely craft your own room with that knowledge and the understandings that I've tried to impart, so that you really have a good comprehension of what's happening there and how simple it really is. There are huge complexities there, but if you try to get a hold of it and hold on to it as simply as possible, that those complexities broken down into more simple ideas and concepts make putting those things together much easier, so that by the time you really understand that you're crafting your own rooms, just like if you got a hammer and nails and start building a room, for the guitar work, or for the vocalist, or for a piano room, or for a vocal room or choir room, or any kind of room, that with a little bit of looking into it and digging around on some impulse responses and what that means, that you can craft them very easily yourself. It's not going to take you 5 minutes to do. You understand that it's going to take a little bit of work on your part, but it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of money, and you're really going to be, it's going to be much more finer tuned to your taste. Do you have any idea how many rooms that there are, with different characteristics? Some of them the same, some of them not. And and you being able to just craft that right there on your laptop, however you want it, by digging around and looking around a little bit of it, and spend a little bit of time messing around with the characteristics of those impulse responses, or building your own with a clap or a hammer on the table, or whatever, anything like that you could do is going to create the initial aspects of an impulse response for you to craft it any way you want. And so I really hope that those videos were very much understandable and simplistic enough to where you didn't get lost in them. And if you did, please let me know, and I'd be very happy to answer any specific questions you might have. But I hope I made it fairly simple, so that if you really start thinking about it, some of those concepts can get very complex, and you can really do some research and study on them. But if you're trying to get a hold of the basic concept and work with those basic concepts in the production that you're working in the production we're looking at, in music production in the audio engineering realm, that, those concepts are small enough and not so complex that you can get a hold of them and use them properly, and probably very well, with just the understanding of what I've tried to lay out there for you to get a hold of. Those concepts that you can apply to your production and make your music, much simpler and easier for you to create, with the concepts and the applications much more finely tuned and targeted for what they're actually able to do, rather than, some huge concept or some, big, realm that, is very hard to get a hold of, and you can spend a lot of money and waste a lot of time digging around there, for trying to attain and reproduce simple things and simple concepts, because they become so complex. And I hope that the different ways of looking at those concepts, and how that they broke down to simpler concepts and how to look at them, that it was very easy for you to understand, so that you can, use the basics to build more complex systems, as it builds. And if you watch all the videos and all this channel, that some of those concepts, as you start building all that together, that it can get very complex. By the time you get done with the mix, you're going, it's like when I first started and I was watching videos, I was like, I didn't see none of that kind of stuff going on, dude. And it wasn't, some of the concepts were being addressed, but not like in a way that broke down these huge concepts into smaller things that basically shed some light on the huge, complex, concept, but tried to bring you back into a more finely tuned and targeted area of that concept, so that you didn't get lost in it, this huge concept, of acoustics and sound engineering and audio engineering and all this other stuff going on. But, let's get back to the acoustics. I hope that was laid out fairly well, to at least where if you didn't get all the answers that the answers that you're looking for, they will be much finer targeted and finer tuned, so you can get some real answers that aren't going to be confusing and get you lost in a whole lot of concepts that lead you off to having to get 10 degrees at 4 different universities so that you can put a drum track together. So I hope that it was very helpful, and I would sure love that any feedback that you might have, or anything that I might make some notes on there if something was missed, or anything like that, because the whole channel is to help you learn that a lot of these things that I've spent a lot of time studying and learning, and some people just don't have that luxury, and they want to get a mix done, and they want to understand these concepts without having to go to college for 8 years. So I hope that that's doing a good job of that, and I certainly hope you enjoyed this series, and I hope that it was defined in a way and elaborated in a way that made it easier for you to grab hold of those concepts and use them in the productions that you're working on. Thank you very much, and peace, hope, love.